The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Earnestly Speaking podcast coming to you on October 25th, 2022. We have a loaded show for you guys today, so I'm not going to waste too much time here talking. Of course, it's Tuesday, so we have our usual Still the Game report with Kyle Nash coming up in the next segment. And then we have an old friend of the pod who has been on the pod in a little while, Greg Hrinya, NBA writer. We'll be talking about NBA basketball first week in. Lots to talk about on the NBA side right now as well, too. Like I said, very excited to be doing this stuff, man. It's really exciting times to be, in sports. I'm going to spend this first segment ranking a lot of shit, though. Two things. I want to talk about coaching. I want to talk about the coaches right now, coaching performances right now through 7 weeks. Next week, well, obviously, when we do the game report next week with Kyle, we're going to do our letter grade for each team for next week's episode. But I want to talk coach of the year and coach of the year rankings more than anything else. And this has been a topic I've been a little bit passionate about recently because of, the certain someone who I believe right now through 7 weeks. And look, we don't vote right now through 7 weeks. Let's stop right there. Okay. This is just content. This is narrative. But if you're going based on the sample given, I'm going to use the sample given. Through 7 weeks, I've been saying Brian Daboll is the coach of the year for the New York Giants. For the league, Brian Daboll, coach of the New York Giants, is the coach of the year in my opinion. But I also want to widen the conversation a little bit too when it comes to this topic, because I think there's a lot of good performances happening in the league right now that we're not giving a lot of credit to right now. And for the sake of the argument, for the sake of discussion, of course, I know this topic is going to piss a lot of people listening to this podcast, because there's people who a lot of people actually agree with me, to be honest with you. Although I was way ahead on the bandwagon about that before anybody else was. Okay, but a lot of people listen to this podcast who are going to be pissed about what I'm going to say here about. But again, I don't care. That is my opinion, and too bad. So with that in mind, I'm going to go 5-1. I'm going to tell you guys who I believe right now through 7 weeks rather are having the best coaching performance right now in the league. Number 5. This is a surprise to some people, but hear me out here. Mike McCarthy. The Cowboys are 5-2. That's not a surprise. But how they got here should be more of a surprise. Now, people are going to say, well, it's Dan Quinn's defense and this and that. And sure. But this is the issue I have with people when we debate these things about narratives and about, especially about Mike McCarthy. Like, he gets the blame for everything. Everything the Cowboys do wrong, he gets the blame for it. So why is it then when he's doing the right things and making the right moves and doing what he can to does what he can to make his team win, he's not getting the credit for it? And I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I think it's stupid. So Mike McCarthy is number 5 for me, is best coach of the year ranking so far through 2022, through 7 weeks. Number 4, Pete Carroll. Again, Pete Carroll is a guy that I think everybody, myself, a lot of analysts had the Seahawks, being a bottom 5 team, coming to the year. Geno's the quarterback. He's having a fantastic year. The Seahawks had some blunders this year too. Also, let's not get carried away either. But after trading Russell Wilson, to the Broncos, getting absolutely shit for doing that, including me, I have to give that what's due. Pete Carroll has done a really good job with the Seahawks team through 7 weeks. Right now, as we record this podcast, they are in first place in the NFC West, in a division that has the Super Bowl champions Rams and the Niners, who were in the NFC title game last year. For the record, they are right now sitting in first place. So that is what it is. Okay. Number 3, Robert Saleh for the New York Jets. And I think it's kind of crazy because when you look at Saleh and what he's done, in terms of the Jets being 5-2, it's kind of like the Giants in a sense too, smoke and mirrors, because their offense. I mean, the running back who got hurt for the year, I said Brees Hall, whatever his name is, who actually had a very strong case to be rookie of the year this year. Offense hasn't been that great. Zach Wilson hasn't been that good at all, and they're doing this with a stout defense. Now look, I still think the Jets, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors there. I think they're probably better than what I thought they were, but not as great as people may think they are either. But 5-2 is 5-2, man. And when you win games in Denver, which is not a good team, but still winning in Denver, winning in Cleveland, winning in Green Bay, I mean, you have to give some credit what credit's due. So the Jets have found the ways at 5-2. I mean, right now, a game back of Buffalo in the division. I'm obviously not going to catch the Bills, I don't think. But just the fact you're in the position to do that it's kind of, to be honest, kind of shocking. So the Jets, Robert Salah, number 3 in my power rankings for Coach of the Year. Number 2, Nick Sirianni. The only reason I didn't put him at number 1 for obvious reason, number 1 was number 1. Obviously, I think we know who Brian Daboll number 1 for me, of course. The Eagles are obviously better than we thought they were, at least in my eyes. Okay, but the Eagles, we knew I picked the Eagles win the division, so them being in first place ain't a shock at all. Okay, I said the Eagles win the NFC East. Now I didn't think they'd be this good, but the expectation was for the Eagles that because last year they were a playoff team. People forget that they were a playoff team, lost to Tampa in the first round in the wild card game. Okay. But people thought, okay, this is a playoff team, and this is probably going to team win the division. Now, whether or not they are a Super Bowl team, that was the thing that people did not know what there'd be. And obviously, right now, through 7 weeks, I think it's safe to say the Eagles are the favorites right now in the NFC. If you look at the entire conference right now, even the teams that you would probably say, okay, well, this team might get together, this team is struggling, but the Eagles are, it feels like they're a clear-cut favorite. Like the Vikings are 5-1. But the Eagles beat them already. The Giants are 6-1, but the Giants, it's the last quarter too. Let's be real. Cowboys 5-2, but the Eagles beat them too. So it's like one of those things where the Eagles have proven so far through 7 weeks that we're the class of the conference right now through 7 weeks. And Nick Sirianni is definitely my number 2. Like I said, the only reason I don't have him number 1 is because again he's doing what we probably kind of thought we were going to do anyway. Maybe obviously a little better. But being, unbeaten number 1, being the only unbeaten team left in the league, you have to get some credence. But reason why I'll say again, the reason why Brian Daboll's number 1 is this: through 7 weeks, they've already surpassed their total from last year. Everybody had the Giants in last place this season. Everybody, including myself, who's a Giants fan. Just for the record, what did I say to you guys on this podcast before the season started? If the Giants win 7 games. If they win just 7 games this year, that's a success. The bar was set so low. They're already at 6 right now, and we're not even in Halloween yet. And then the schedule breaks from well too on top of that, but they're already at 6 wins right now, and we're not a Halloween yet. Is there smoke and mirrors? Yes, but is this a playoff team? Probably. I mean, I'm not even saying that because they're that good. I think the combination of them playing as good as they have with the fact that the rest of the conference below them is a fucking mess is going to make that argument stronger as weeks go by. The Packers, Bucs, Rams, all teams struggling. Teams that we would consider locks to get into the playoffs, all struggling. Don't look at me. They're 6-1. They're winning games. They're winning the games they need to win. Like I said, they're not a Super Bowl contender. They're probably, in my opinion, barely a playoff contender. But this is not a very talented team again. But this is a very competent team that's learning how to play situational football. What do we know about the Giants? What do we know about the Giants right now? Okay, Saquon's back. He's been fantastic. Probably the best back in the league right now. Okay, and then the defense is getting better every week. And then finally, for the first time this year, Daniel Jones is getting some of his flowers now. Best game he's had of his season, arguably his career, against the Jacksonville Jaguars this past Sunday. So that's Brian Daboll's coaching rising the floor, making this team competent. I don't understand people saying he's not even close to the conversation. When you just had this team literally winning no more than 5 games this year, and they already surpassed that number in 6 weeks. That makes zero sense. Again, with information, people should be able to change their opinions. Okay? 6-1. It's a pretty big sample now to at least allow that conversation to happen. Look, if he's not number one, fine, but he's in the conversation. To me, he's number one. It's not even close. And all the media knows that, too. Which is funny, because I was ahead of the curve on that one as well, too, but it doesn't matter. So, anyway, it is time for our Power 10, Week 8 Power 10, Bottom 5 Power Rankings. Here we go. Hit the music. It's time. My bottom 5. Let's go from 28 to 32, all the way down. Number 28, Washington Commanders. Which, by the way, they've won 2 in a row. So my dumb Commanders playoff pick is still alive. They're 3-4, just like the Bucs, just like the Niners, and just like the Packers. Just saying. 29, the Denver Broncos. And I'll be honest with you, there was thought about putting them even lower. Yes, Russell Wilson didn't play this past Sunday, but even with Russ, they looked terrible. And now they're 2-5. This season's over. This season's over. And now the question is going to be, does Nathaniel Hackett survive the season? Does he? We shall see. 30, the Carolina Panthers, with a big win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Panthers are only one game back in the NFC South. I mean, they're not going to win it, obviously. I mean, I don't think so, but yeesh, that division's bad. 31, Detroit Lions. Yes, they are officially bad again. Remember earlier in the year, the Lions are a frisky team, and I said it too. Possibly a playoff team, number 7 seed in the NFC. Yeah. That's over now. Put that to bed. And now the question is going to be, does Dan Campbell survive beyond this year? I mean, I'm not saying to fire the guy, but you have to question that. 32, Houston Texans back to where the drum board. After having been very competitive most of the year, this is really the first really bad loss, and unfortunately, I won one win this year. Yeah, you're the bottom of the bottom of the barrel this year. So, again, that's Commanders, Broncos, Panthers, Lions, and Texans from 28-32. Your bottom 5 this week. All right, here we go. Number 10. This might surprise some folks because they've been very quiet, but they're actually quietly one of the hottest teams in the league right now. Number 10, the Tennessee Titans. Look, you guys knew I told you guys before the year started I was not high on this team. I thought they took a step back, but here's the thing. Here's the thing that's obvious now. With the Colts now and the issues, and we'll talk about this in a couple minutes. You know, Matt Ryan being benched for the year, Colts are done. Okay, Colts are pretty much done. The Jaguars lost 3 in a row, or 4 in a row, I think now. It might have been 4 in a row. They're done. Okay, the Texans, obviously the Texans. The Titans have a cakewalk to the AFC South title. So what we're doing now moving forward is this: how do we measure the Titans up against the upper echelon of the AFC? Now, I don't think they're that good, but they're going to get in the playoffs by virtue of what division they play in. So Titans number 10. Number 9, my New York Football Giants move up 1 spot. Again, a game they almost blew. The officials tried each way to give the game to the Jaguars, but the Giants are 6-1. You're finding ways to win. And is it with a team like this that's not that talented? You know, you have to respect that. So Giants number 9 with 1 spot. Number 8, the San Francisco 49ers. Yes, they're 3-4. But I'm not judging this team against Kansas City. If we're talking about the Niners and against in relation to the Chiefs or the Bills or the Eagles right now, yeah, they're not in that echelon, but that's 3 teams. But I do think this Niners team, now they got Christian McCaffrey now, and I have a whole week now to prepare going forward. I know Jimmy G's not that great, but I trust this team to be hanging around in the end. Because after Philadelphia in the NFC, who you really trusting right now going forward? That's why the door is still open for San Fran. And so that's just, at a lesser extent, Green Bay and Tampa. Number 7, the Dallas Cowboys. Dak is back. He looked a little rusty early on, but he played better as the game went on. Like I said, this team's going to be in the mix. You know, like I said, the NFC's wide open for any of these teams to challenge the Eagles right now in that conference right now. So the Cowboys are hanging around there. Number 7. Number 6, the Baltimore Ravens. They won this weekend against Cleveland. Not very easy. I mean, yeah, individual game, individual optics, we get that. Yeah, you're seeing more warts on this team now. I'm starting to worry me. Like I said, I still think they're a really good team. They might probably not be the favorites in the AFC North anymore. I don't know. This team is kind of really worrying me now. I think they're a playoff team, but certainly now they're falling back a little bit more as the weeks go by. Number 5, this team fell one spot despite not being in the not playing this weekend. Minnesota Vikings. Like I said, I think they're a solid team, they're a playoff team. They're probably going to win the NFC North now at this point. You know, they have a 2-game lead. Actually, 3 when you count the tiebreaker, 3-game lead over the Packers currently right now. The question is going to be whether or not I can trust them moving forward into the playoffs. And until they win, let's say, multiple playoff games, with Kirk Cousins as quarterback, I can't, certainly put my stamp on that wholeheartedly. But the Vikings number 5 for me. This team moved up big time on my list. Number 4, the Cincinnati Bengals. I said it on the podcast, on Sunday Reaction Podcast. I think this team will go on a heater. Okay, they started 2 weeks ago. Last week against the New Orleans. This week they blew up the Atlanta Falcons. The team has been very frisky all year long. I think this team is probably the favorite to win the AFC North now, despite losing to Baltimore a couple weeks back. Because I think this team now is getting is healthier now. The O-line's playing a little bit better now than it did early in the year. I think the Bengals team is dangerous now. I think this Bengals team could be probably the 3rd team in the AFC right now, possibly. We'll see. Number 3, the Chiefs blowout win against San Francisco 49ers, of course, on the road. Great bounce back game against the Niners there. 2, Eagles, of course, on the bye. Bills, number 1, of course, on the bye as well, too. Like I said, no change at the top 3. This top 3 has been the same top 3 pretty much since the season started. Pretty much this week, too. So, anyway, let's talk about NFL here with Kyle Nash. It's Stingray Report time. And let's see what things he agrees and disagrees with me on. There we go. All right, Stingray Report. Of course, Kyle Nash, week 8. What do we know about the NFL right now? What do we know?
Diddly. Well, we do know that you overrate the 49ers, but that's a whole other question.
So, I just did this first time on the podcast. I did my rankings. So you want to wait till huddle up to hear the playback on that one?
Yeah, let's do that because my appearance on the Play Callers Network is actually pretty early tonight, so
nice.
I will be jumping in and out and right back in. So,
right, okay. So I want to start here first. Like I didn't think we had anything to talk about after the Monday night game last night. Honestly, like I thought it was be a throwaway game. The Pats just win this with ease, that kind of thing. It's like whatever. How about NBA League Pass, whatever? And then I see the Bears up 10-0, and I see that Mac Jones started and then he's pulled. Like was it 2 drives, if that?
Yeah, right.
2 drives, bring back Zappy Mania, Bailey Zappi. And then the Patriots come back and they take a 14-10 lead. And then that's it. And then the Bears take over the game. The Bears. This is by far easily their best performance of the year. And I'm watching that game too with Justin Fields. I'm like obviously we don't talk about much on the podcast, but clearly there's much work with, of course. And, there's still a lot of growing there for him. But I felt like last night watching him, especially on Monday Night Football, especially the specter of being the only game on, that's a possible narrative-changing, career-altering moment for him that could move him forward in a positive direction. What do you think?
Right, and if you're not somebody who covers the NFL as closely as you or I do, that moment could be. But, some of us out there have said that the problem with Justin Fields isn't with Justin Fields, but the supporting cast, right? And as much as people have said that quarterbacks can elevate bad teams when they are traditional talents, Patrick LeVon Mahomes II couldn't fix the Bears, right? But when put in position to do so in this game, Patrick LeVon Mahomes II could have done what Justin Fields did here. Now, am I saying that Justin Fields is Patrick LeVon Mahomes II? Of course not. I don't even know Justin Fields' middle name yet. But that's
I can research it. It's not time.
No, he has.
That's
correct. I mean, based on the question as you pose it, if you were that fan, you are looking it up in Wikipedia for later reference if he gets there. But I'm telling you, it's not even time to research it yet until this front office gets some more in order and gets to that point where you could start saying, okay, you have no excuses. Kind of like, let's say, what a Tua Tagovailoa or maybe even a Trevor Lawrence might be at this time. Although I would argue Tua has a shorter rope, or rather a longer one now, I should say, due to his injuries.
Right.
And then Trevor had to deal with Urban Meyer. So, as much as people want to talk ish on Matt Nagy in Chicago and claiming he was a bad coach, even though he was coach of the year as a rookie coach in the NFL, but no one wants to talk about that. I don't know.
And 2 playoff appearances too on top of that.
Yeah, thank you. And with Mitch Trubisky, which, I mean, there's a reason why we were picketing for the other guy to start in Pittsburgh. But
right.
Yeah, I'll put it this way. This I'm not going to say it was Well, yeah, I am going to say this is what we would expect from Justin Fields when the scenario is correct. But whether he could overcome all the Bears' shortcomings is going to be fascinating. I see a future where I might point to this moment as being, this is kind of, think Wes, the secret weapon Welker of the Miami Dolphins.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that Wes Welker that became Wes the Weapon Welker on the Student of the Game podcast. Bing! The first go-round, of course, as a Patriot. And we saw what he became.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that in quarterback form, and that's what Justin Fields will be, in my estimation. I don't think he's going to stay with the Bears because at some point, you've already seen whisperings that he's annoyed with the situation, and I have no reason to believe that the Bears at this time would acquiesce any big contract demands that Justin Fields makes. Some other team is going to scoop him up, maybe let's say a Denver, for example, when Rusty retires, if it takes that long, or let's say a Tampa Bay might be interested when Brady retires this year. When Field sees success, it'll be in a different uniform. That's my prediction. No offense to my good friend, controversy Raphael Hands of the 3-point conversion. Bing!
Not for nothing. I obviously, look, they're not a playoff team, obviously.
Certainly.
But I texted last night after the game, on a group text, and there's a extreme clusterfuck right now in the NFC wildcard picture. Okay,
I love the scientific terms you're using.
If you didn't look at the standings, you wouldn't know that the Bears are 3-4 right now. Okay, you wouldn't know that the Washington Commanders are 3-4 right now. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. No, and there's all sorts of here and in college football. There's been parity like none before. Yeah. More so in college football. It's unprecedented right now what's going on.
It really is. It really is.
But,
and like I said, they're not a playoff team, man. But God, I mean, they're 3-4. And look, if this game could propel the Bears to probably pick up some wins going forward, maybe we have something to talk about going forward. But I mean, that last time was a big night. And to be honest with you, for a Patriots team that was playing very well last couple of weeks, that was people starting to feel something. Maybe this team could be an AFC wildcard picture. Yeah, I think last I put the brakes on that pretty quickly.
Listen, when Fields comes out and flexes like this, the Bears having a high draft pick, that's the kind of stuff that draws in free agents to make a splash. Just
exactly, absolutely. All right, we teased a little bit about the Bucs and whatever. Bucs Packers, man. In fact, this is like the ongoing story every week now on this podcast. The struggles now. Both teams 3-4. Of the two teams, which team are you more concerned about?
Packers, and it's not close. At the end of the day, the Bucs have Tom Brady, who, regardless of what you and I think about whether or not he's the GOAT, Tom Brady's definitely a Hall of Famer. And he's a guy that's known for making guys around him better, regardless of how he treats him and how we feel about that, right? But the Bucs are a number of injuries that are the problem. Get some guys to come back, they could turn it around. The Packers, not so much, man. Not so much, especially with now, I think, Aaron Charlie Rodgers taking some, hits and playing a little nicked up at times here too himself, on top of the fact that he might as well start a babysitting service with all the youth out there. Or actually, wait a minute. It's interesting. When he was drafted first round out of Cal, Alex Smith was drafted ahead of him coming out of Utah as a Ute. And now
no, you're not doing that. My God!
Oh, full circle.
You should say that for the Puddle Podcast night.
I won't say it again for Jim's sake.
No, I agree with 100%, and not just what you said, but the probably the most obvious thing about that whole thing is this: the Bucs playing the NFC South.
It's a great.
They're still in first place. Like they're
both
going
suck, but like there is no Vikings for
exactly
the Bucs to battle. You're 100%.
There's no Vikings, and we just mentioned the Bears. Also, the Bears and then the Packers are the same record now. This out of nowhere. But the NFC South, like obviously, like the Bucs are going to win the division. Still, when it's all said and done, even if it's 8-9 wins, I'm not pulling off of that. That's why the Saints come back, or the Panthers come back, or the Falcons going to do their thing. No,
who EJ?
The fraud cons.
Thank you.
The fraud cons. So that's what it comes down to me. And I think also too, the Bucs situation I think is fixable. You said injuries. I think Brady will figure it out. Maybe when the year's over, we'll assess the roster and all that. The Packers issues are something that I think it's just what it is.
Right.
I don't think you can fix that in season at this point, unless you catch. I mean, part B of receivers catch footballs, but Aaron Rodgers tends to get very frustrated. Aaron Rodgers tends to get very frustrated very easily. And you talk about which guy, put it this way, which quarterback would you rather be playing under this kind of circumstances?
Well,
Tom Brady.
Actually, I don't agree with the statement that Aaron Rodgers gets frustrated easily. I've never seen Aaron Rodgers or clips of Aaron Rodgers on the sideline straight up like ugly face yelling at his teammates. He may say more stuff in the public eye, but I don't think it's fair to say that Rodgers gets frustrated more easily. No, that's not a good take at all, EJ.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. I listen. You're getting the gauntlet either way. It's just a matter of whether you're called out publicly or angrily. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Fair enough. Another 3-4 team, close to your heart, the Niners. I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say. I look. It seems like the last 2 weeks I made the kind of a face turn on the Niners. Now also I'm a Niners fan. Not really. I'm just saying. Let me say this real quick. Look, even after this game against the Chiefs, which we all knew they were going to lose anyway. We all knew this. Okay. I still trust the Niners. Why? Look, if we're talking about measuring, hold on, Kyle. If we're talking about measuring up against the Chiefs or the Bills or to a lesser extent the Eagles, you have a point there. Okay. This is not this though. What's about the
get the obvious stuff out of the way.
Right.
Define trust.
Okay. Now, if this team stays banked up the rest of the year, then we have another conversation going forward. But they're gonna get healthy. Okay.
They are.
Let's not forget. They started. Hold on, wait. They started this year. This is like identical to last year. This is deja vu from last year. They were 3-5 last year at one point.
Sure.
And they're minutes in the Super Bowl.
Okay, but let me stop you right there.
Okay, go.
You're talking about staying healthy. What guarantees do you have at staying healthy for this squad? Please tell me, EJ.
Oh, wait, no, don't guarantee that, of course.
Who's in their backfield now again?
Chris McCaffrey.
And?
Who's
the damn quarterback?
Oh, Jimmy G.
And how many full seasons has he made it through with a gold helmet?
None, I think.
One.
Oh, one, okay. The Super Bowl year, right?
Funny how that works, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, he's healthy now. It's okay.
Now?
No. I said.
I am encouraged by the prospect that he, as a football player, might get a second full season in. But let's not get ahead of ourselves either. There's another game against the Rams coming up. And while we know they're a depleted team, that's always a big matchup within the regular season.
So here's my argument for the Niners here. It'd be easy to say, okay, the Niners are in trouble, this and that. If you had, say, like multiple teams in the NFC we can trust going forward. Okay, so look at the environment in the NFC. Obviously, this Eagles pencil them in. They're the class of the conference right now. Mm-hmm. So you have your dominant teams in the NFC right now by virtue of record are the following: the Vikings, the Giants, the Cowboys. Which one of those are you trusting long term?
So let me congratulate you, EJ, that you actually brought this argument to the forefront instead of me having to do it for you later in the segment to get a decent argument to your side of the story here.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, this is the correct argument. When you say trust them, how do you mean? They're still a playoff team in this garbage conference? How can you say no at this point? You can't even rule out the Rams at this point.
Nope.
What was it? Cluster you said earlier? Exactly.
Clusterfuck.
Okay, sure. I mean, it's your show. If you want to be potty mouth, that's your option. But listen, this exchange about us as the odd couple on that front is a total awesome.
Don't you just love it?
I'm not offended by naughty words. You know, I'm just more prone to use them when you egg me on in the Huddle Up podcast. Bing! But or come out of nowhere after I have two classy people on my show, and then the first thing you say is, "Oh fuck," you know, like.
That was fun, by the way. That was fun.
Best NFC East preview of all time, as far as
you can't take me out any. You cannot take me out anywhere, Kyle. Anywhere.
Well, no, I just want credit for inclusion, right? I opened the show with a very talented black lady in the form of Karita Parks. Then I had the Muslim football scout Bashir Pemberton on. Then I have you and the whitest guy we perform with, Big Jim. Inclusion 101, baby. You know.
Hey, look, Kyle, you chose violence, buddy. You chose violence.
No, I chose versatility. Be fair.
True.
Wrong V.
Amen. I like that. But like back to like you were saying about the conference though. Like if you ask me to vacuum, are the Rams going to the playoffs? I'm going to say yes. They'll figure it out. They're just too good a team to not figure it out. Okay?
Well, they have too good a coaching staff, and that's
right.
What you've said.
The Bucs are going to get in by virtue of division, so things will shake out.
Another good coaching staff too. Let's not act like Todd Bowles is a bad coach.
No, of course. But again, the environment makes it so that the Niners are probably the only team in that conference right now that I don't look at record. I don't care. I know when they're healthy. Now, again, if they fall behind a couple more games, then we got a problem. But I feel like 10-7, 9-8.
Yeah,
they get in the playoffs. They're still a team that I guess we'll see that team in the Super Bowl bubble.
And as I used to say earlier in the days of podcasts, how you used to, need an orthopedist with knee jerks. Let's also remind America, we're not halfway through the season yet.
We're going next week.
So, no, we're not. Week 9 is the middle.
Week 9 is next week. Well, technically, we're week 8 now, right now, as we do this podcast.
The week following. Got it. Okay.
When we do this podcast next week, we're doing those grades. That's week 9.
Right. There you go. Just like I'll have our friend Mikey Byrne on the Student of the Game podcast to do midseason awards. Bing!
So that's why I trust the Niners, because what they do travels well. I don't care about win-loss record. Because if they get in the playoffs 9-8, they're a fucking problem for every team in that conference. I don't care.
I don't worry about win-loss record either. I worry about the fact that they're a mistake-prone football team. This is why I've sold on the Jaguars too. It's not that I think they're bad; they're just a mistake-prone football team, right?
They're also a young team. They're also a very young team.
The reason why your Giants, who committed 8 penalties in that game and barely squeaked by into something that was tantamount to the Titans and Rams Super Bowl with Dyson and Mike Jones tackling him as he's extending to the 1-yard line, is because of the fact there were 13 penalties and Travis Etienne fumbled the ball into the end zone of what should have been the score that preserved it all.
I agree. 100%. I agree.
This is the reason why Brian Daboll isn't the coach of the year.
You know what's sad about the whole McAdoo thing? You're like 3 coaches too late on that one.
Yeah.
Since McAdoo,
I bring that up. I'm really
since McAdoo, you have Pat.
Like you, I'm not happy. I make mistakes, and I don't turn it into a segment where I have a T-shirt and a coffee mug sponsoring it.
Pat Shurmur and fucking Joe Judge. You forget the coach of the year, Brian Daboll.
I mean, we should probably forget both those guys too, if we're being honest. So really, I'm helping you on that.
That's very true. And at least McAdoo went to the playoffs one year with the Giants. Even though that year, and you know this too. That year, I said that's not a good coach. Even when the playoffs.
You called him McAdoo, if memory serves.
Macapoop.
Well, it became that. It started with McAdoo, which was actually clever. But you can't have clever with tool time involved.
Again, you cannot take me anywhere. You know that. Matt Ryan benched. Now we thought, okay, he was hurt, but he got benched, and they're gonna start Sam Ehlinger not just this week, but for the season.
Yeah.
So 2 things to look at here: the Colts, who are 3-1, who are technically still in the race to the AFC South, although. Let's be real. They ain't winning that.
That ain't it.
Personal opinion, that ain't it. But also, Matt Ryan, is this it?
Oh, he done.
Career done?
And he should be, because you know what'll happen is our good friend Danny Thompson, who tried to tell us he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, if he continues playing with the Colts, he'll have a losing career record at this rate.
Yeah. Did the Colts pull the trigger on this too quick?
No, because what they're doing is they're looking for that shot in the arm, and they're looking for mobility in the backfield, which they don't have, which you need to exist in today's NFL, especially with the injuries that the Colts have been facing. So they still I still believe, heck, you just said it, they're still mathematically playoff relevant. This was a knee jerk for the job to be kept by the coaching staff, right? Who has been under fire, for better or worse, correct or not, right? They're trying to make that stretch for the proverbial goal line, and while it looks like they may fumble instead, this is what they're trying to do, desperate to try to score that last playoff spot.
It's funny, when I first saw the news yesterday about this, I was like, what are you doing? You guys still in the playoff mix? I'm thinking, I slept on it last night. I woke up this morning. I'm like, you know what? I actually respect this. I actually respect this move here. And I don't.
If you were a coach or a GM, this is a move I could see you making. And in this case, this isn't like your top 10. I'm not mad at this.
Right.
Matt,
but look at this way. Since Andrew Luck, they've had an open and door shut round robin of quarterbacks. Now, granted, Phil Rivers went to playoffs one year.
Not just quarterbacks, but aged patchwork, like.
And I feel like this is an attempt to them to really start clean here. Okay, we got a young quarterback, a year, maybe 2 years into the league now, Sam Ellinger from Texas. Let's see what he has. If he's not good, then we're gonna fall apart anyway. And we'll get draft pick.
Exactly.
You know, that's how I took that.
If Ellinger pans best case scenario, then they get him something to help him.
Exactly. Absolutely. I actually don't. Now, 24 hours later, I don't disagree with what they did here, honestly, because Matt Ryan looks cooked.
Yeah. No. It's unfortunate. I didn't think he was quite this done, but then again, when he was facing protection issues throughout his career, the promise of him playing in Indy would that he would be getting better protection, but injuries have prevented that from happening. Sure, he's still got Quentin Nelson for most of the games this year, but the tackle spot hasn't looked good. And, listen, props to my people at the Indy Intercept podcast. My guy Boom has dubbed Sam Ellinger Yosemite Sam. I'm sticking with that.
All right. The Seattle Seahawks were in first place in the NFC West. Who would have thought that through 7 weeks? If you had told me, Kyle, that this week, week 8 on Fox, that the Seahawks and Giants would be the game of the week on Fox, I would have called you. I would have fucking taken this pen and threw it in your face and walk away.
I make a similar reference to this in this upcoming edition of the Matchup Mania on the 3-point conversion. Bing! Except I do it with a lot more fun Hollywood or Halloween flair. You might want to check that out.
Okay. Obviously we know the nerves of the Seahawks. They traded away Russell Wilson during the offseason, which you and I both hated. Both Russell Wilson guys.
And you should.
Geno Smith's the quarterback who's let's be real, he's had a very good, I think very good is even putting it lightly. The guy through 7 weeks is still throwing a 72% clip right now.
I mean, he and Travis Etienne are both in conversations for comeback player of the year.
Absolutely. Is it time to at least give through 7 weeks? Is it time to at least give Pete Carroll credit for what he's done here?
No.
Why is that?
Because the way he threw Rusty under the bus, and now he coddles Geno Smith, and now he's a hero. Bullshit. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Geno has had better protection this year than Russell Wilson had since Max Unger and Porkchop stopped being on the front line. Right? Anybody going to deny that? Right? Where was this love back in 2017, 2019 when he was the actual MVP and the media threw him under the bus then by not voting for him with MVP votes? This year, Nathaniel Hackett is awful and he's injured, but nobody wants to talk about that. They just want to make fun of him like he's Russell Westbrook for the Lakers, okay? There's a damn basketball reference for you.
I love it.
I
love it.
So, and actually, that's actually shockingly accurate because of the style of player that both Russell Westbrook and Russell Wilson both have been, guys that are slashers, guys that move around a lot, guys that don't necessarily play a air quotes long distance game, although Rusty at one point, when healthy, can sling a ball pretty well down the field, where and Westbrook has never been a great 3-point shooter. I think he's the last true slasher you'll see being able to make a living mostly on that in the NBA, but that's a whole other question.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll talk about that sometime on the Student of the Game podcast. Bing! But the punchline is, now in year whatever, and people want to talk about Rusty having been in the NFL for 9 or 10 years. It's more like 12 or 13 with the hits he's taken in Seattle. Yeah. And I know the alleged allegation is that Rusty can't read defenses. Really? We're going to play that card? Russell Wilson can't read defenses? Cute. I've seen what he can do on third down, even as a rookie back when I was critical of him.
Yeah.
But nobody wants to talk about that. So, at the end of the day, Pete Carroll will get some credit. Yes. Having the audacity to start a Geno Smith who's been maligned throughout his career. And I know people are playing the race card. That ain't it. I'm sorry. It's a bad look when the reason you missed games is because you got punched by a third string linebacker because you owed him money. Okay. That ain't the public's fault. That's your fault. That's a character problem. Now, Fortunately, he's grown past it, and I celebrate that. I celebrate Geno Smith, and if this keeps up much longer, Ernest Christian, I might be in a position to put him as a midseason MVP candidate over your Saquon Barkley.
Who, Geno?
Yes. I didn't say I said candidate. I didn't say
candidate. No. Wait. I think MVP right now is
for. Have to have that conversation. Can you name the Seahawks running back? I'll wait. Exactly.
No. That Walker guy receiver, right? The guy Walker's a receiver, right? I think
the guy Walker. Let's move on. I'm not trying.
I don't watch Seahawks games, buddy, so I can't tell you anything.
Well, and they don't do a great job of showing them # West Coast bias or East Coast bias, whatever. Yeah. The punchline is this, my friend.
I love your punchlines.
I know you do. They're competing in a way that you didn't expect. I would put Pete Carroll on the ballot, let the 12 crowd vote it, and then fall short, just like it happened with Russell Wilson anyway. As an MVP, of course, rather than a coach of the year candidate. So, yeah, I mean, credit where due, but let's see what happens. Because when they played a real team, a.k.a. your 49ers, what happened? Dominated by 20 points.
Your Niners.
Your 49ers.
Is Seattle a playoff team?
You see, if no matter what I say, I am culpable to the weak NFC conference defense. I can't answer that.
Yeah, no, I'm with you because again they're in first place in the West, but again, I do think things will shake out properly once we get into November.
What a time we're living in, right?
It's great.
Last decade, the NFC was head and shoulders, but now,
Yeah, I'm telling you. One more thing before I let you go. Trade deadline is coming up. Now we should be, I believe it's on the day we do our next student game report, next podcast we do together. Do you see any trades happening between now and then? We obviously saw what happened to Chris McCaffrey getting traded to San Francisco last Thursday. I think James Robinson from the Jaguars got traded to the Jets yesterday.
Robinson from the Jaguars got canceled, and I actually hinted at it at the article that's coming out with the 3-point conversion for the Jaguars where I feature Travis Etienne, but unfortunately the trade happened before the article was released, so I had to change that, but I had predicted it. So, yeah. Do I see moves being made? Yeah. Can I tell you what they are? No. But, teams like the Jaguars who think that they have a playoff shot are obviously your main candidates. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Rams make a move, but I don't know who they would really go after at this point in this market. Nothing comes immediately to mind. The Cardinals, to their credit, have made their move, gotten another receiver out of Carolina. I don't know what other player that Carolina's fire selling that's really worth taking at this point, in my opinion. Nobody jumps out. So I don't know what that looks like. Nobody out of the NFC East is going to make a move currently because the Giants
need a receiver. They need a receiver or two.
Right. Well, they might be in the market to find somebody. I'll agree with that. But what receiver would you chase at this point? And with whom could you make that deal?
Claypool in Pittsburgh. I don't know. The Packers receiver.
Claypool isn't an answer because he's not a true downfield threat.
Okay.
Right. He's a great receiver. I'd love for him to be on my roster. But if you're trying to solve the Giants' problem, Claypool ain't it. It's kind of like what the Jaguars hoped to do with Marvin Jones last year when it was him and DJ Chark. I like Marvin Jones. He's not a number one, but at least with Chark, somebody was deep and somebody could run around underneath. Then Chark got hurt and that flew way, down the drain, But if Christian Kirk type is somebody who the Giants can kind of get to kind of fill the spot and stretch the field. But listen, Wendell Robinson looked really good against the Jags, and he's a player I saw at the Citrus Bowl against Iowa, and I liked his game a lot. Cool guy in the press conference too, by the way. Mm-hmm. So, I think you have the makings of being it. Watch the Jaguars offense closely there, EJ, and if you saw stuff that you liked them running against your Giants, don't be surprised if Brian Daboll doesn't steal from that.
Interesting. Anyway, Kyle, plug away.
That's what she said. Anyway,
she did say that.
It's a privilege, EJ, to once again do my report for you. I enjoy the fact that you've been taking good notes this year, and it has resulted in fewer bad takes by you. So I'm proud of you.
Very few. Very few.
So listen, man, honor, joy, and privilege as always. Of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game. You can find me on Twitter at the SOTG. Find me on Instagram as the same, the SOTG. Find me on Facebook as the student of the game, and check out my writings with the Black and Gold Banneret. Also going to be on the Black and Gold Banneret podcast as well each week. Boy, UCF fans are going to be pretty sad this week after what happened in East Carolina. Good God. And then, of course, by the way, I will be going to Hoops Media Day this Wednesday for the UCF, both covering the men's and women's teams. So going to have a whole lot of content.
Busy man these days, buddy. Basketball's back now, too. On top of that, you're getting busy.
Yeah, I mean, listen, on Sunday, I won't be watching NFL games. I mean, at least the Jags are on in the morning. The women's basketball team is debuting that Sunday. So I will be in certain tie at Addition Financial Arena rather than at the Ale House taking in NFL games. So that'll be interesting. And then, of course, my work with the three-point conversion. Look out for my Travis Etienne feature and how he's emerged as a weapon after missing an entire year of action as a rookie. And check out also the Matchup Mania Halloween edition this coming Wednesday as well on the threepointconversion.com. That's the number 3, not the word 3. And, of course, my work with A7BN Sports covering the Jacksonville Jaguars with the Captain and Company morning show on Old School 101.com, as well as my work with Demosthenes Euclid and Hilarity by Default YouTube channel with the Required Viewing podcast. Boom! Looking forward to my time with you tonight on the Huddle Up podcast, by the way.
Should be fun. Can't wait. Should be a fun time as always, man.
By the way, turn in all your work. It's time for me to start grading some papers for the midseason grades.
Next week, we can't wait. Next week, we go all 32 teams all the way through and give them a grade and see where they're at through 9 weeks.
We'll do
weeks.
all 32 teams, but if EJ's smart, he'll split it up into two shows.
Nope, not happening.
Hashtag production notes.
Yeah, it'll be part of the Tuesday episode, but I'm going to shorten my segments on the Tuesday episode so we have enough space for this one.
That's what you promised.
Not make it too big, So, Kyle, good job as always.
All right, man. Love you, buddy. Until then, class dismissed.
All right, thank you to Cal, of course, talking NFL, Studio Game Report. As always, I guess check us out tonight on the Huddle Up Podcast. Before we get to our next guest, Greg Hrinya, we titled this episode today, Not the Problem, but Not the Solution, because I wanted to focus a couple minutes on Russell Westbrook. You guys watched that game on Sunday afternoon, rather. It's kind of crazy, like, it's about, like, the sports and the amount of sports are on TV now. And, I have two TV set up downstairs in my house. And I had the Giants game on, the New York Giants game on the big TV. Slightly smaller TV I had on the on Red Zone. And then, like, when the Giants game ended, I'd swap the TVs from Red Zone to the big TV, and then I put on the Lakers-Blazers game, which is into the fourth quarter, on the smaller TV. And that ending of the Lakers-Blazers game is insane. Like, Lakers had that game in the bag until Dame Lillard went off. And then Russell Westbrook, did Russell Westbrook things, unfortunately. It's really sad to watch the downtrend, the undoing of a guy who is, by the way, in case we forgot, a Hall of Famer. Russell Westbrook is an NBA Hall of Famer. In fact, he's probably going to be on the first ballot. But these last couple of years, specifically in LA with the Lakers, has been a disaster. It's been a disaster. And the sad part, too, also, is that while Westbrook, should get some blame and be accountable for the things he's done or has not done on the team, has not played well, that he's not at fault here. In fact, he's not the biggest one at fault here. And I don't want to sit there and say, "Oh, I told you so," but I'm going to say that now. Because I remember the day that trade was made, with Westbrook going to LA. I was on this podcast, okay? And I said that I'm not sure it's going to work. Because at the time, we had thought the Buddy Hield trade with the Kings to the Lakers had gone through. And we said, okay, Buddy Hield is a better fit because he's a shooter, he shoots the floor, that kind of thing. It's a better fit for the Lakers of their needs. And then we hear about an hour later that, no, LeBron nixed that deal. No, not LeBron nixed the deal, but LeBron wanted Russell Westbrook. And they instead, okay, the Westbrook deal. I said this 2 years ago. Well, last year, rather. that Russell Westbrook to the Lakers was not going to be a good fit. Now, I didn't think they would not make the playoffs. I thought they'd still be a playoff team and then figure it out. Much like with the Heat, with the big three, it wasn't a good fit, but they made it work. I thought, okay, maybe they'll make it work. We'll see. And it was worse than we all thought. And I'm sorry, LeBron James gets a lot of blame for this. But also, Rob Pelinka, general manager, gets a lot of blame for this as well, too. Because this roster is horrendous. This roster is terrible. It was terrible last year. And you knew that LeBron needs shooters. And he did nothing this year to fix that problem. You cannot survive in this league without shooters in the team. End discussion. End discussion. You can't. And this roster is too LeBron AD reliant, especially when you consider that AD, Anthony Davis, is in itself, can't stay healthy. He just can't stay healthy. Okay? That's who he is. Death, taxes, and Anthony Davis gets hurt. Bottom line. And that's the sad part about this 0-3 stuff for the Lakers. Not that they're playing bad necessarily. That Golden State game was pretty bad, but the Clippers game they could have won. This game against Portland they could have won as well too. The worst part about all this, and I said it on the Sunday podcast, I'll say it again, is that they're 0-3 and they're all full health right now, all full strength. AD's hasn't gotten hurt yet, and you know that's coming. You know the AD injury is coming. You know LeBron might miss some time because of LeBron's 37 years old, turned 38 in December. You know it's coming. It's a bad roster. That LeBron, Rob Pelinka, and company should get full blame for that. Rob Pelinka's got an extension with the Lakers too, by the way. And look, I know Rob Pelinka was close to Kobe Bryant, was his agent. He's a godfather to his daughters, and God bless all that. I'm not even sitting there saying that Rob Pelinka should get fired because he did bring a championship to the Lakers in the bubble. But he has shit the bed the last 2 years for this team. And anybody, and I'm sure any Laker fan, not being a homer, can admit that as such. And here's the thing. The only move for the Lakers, the only move they have in their back pocket at this point is to move Russell Westbrook. But here's the problem. Who's going to take him? There is no incentive for the team to take Russell Westbrook's contract at this point, other than his expiring deal. But no team wants. But teams are going to want those draft picks. And do you waste another LeBron year as a result? Because they can wait another year. They can waste another year, and wait for Westbrook's contract to expire this year. Because he's getting his $47 million, or they can send him home. And I first thought that the whole going home thing was probably too sudden. 3 games in, let's try to fix this. But maybe I'm not again. Maybe they should send him home. I would say give another week or two of this. See if they can fix this issues with him. Try to get him to come off the bench. And if that doesn't fall through, if that falls through, then send his ass home. At this point, it doesn't even matter. At this point, it's a bad fit, and why make something worse? But I say give it another couple of games. But at this point, I don't put him on the bench, and if he doesn't play well or doesn't seem to respond, play off the bench, send his ass home. Anyway, here's Greg Hrinya, NBA analyst. All right, we're here now with old friend of the pod. Has been about almost 2 years since we've been on the podcast. Greg Hrinya, NBA writer, author. He wrote the Brooklyn Nets book a couple years back about the 5-year plan. Greg, what's up, buddy? How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me.
It's been a long time, man. It's funny. I got, when I saw you, a mutual friend, Matthew Queenie, and you were on his podcast about 2 weeks ago, previewing the NBA season. I'm like, damn, I haven't had Greg on the show in a while. I got to get back on the show ASAP. And so we're here. You know what I mean?
Here I am for you.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I'm 1 week into the year. 1 week into the NBA season. Coming to the year, I'm sure you did as well too. Speak about the parity in the league. Both conferences gonna be deep. Top to bottom. 1 week in, that's definitely the case. But what we're seeing early on too is a lot of teams that we probably would have written off by the end of the year. All of a sudden now, at least 1 weekend. This can change because it's an 82 game sample here. really shocking some folks here. You got the Blazers who are 4-0 right now. You have the Jazz who were unbeaten until last night. Spurs are playing good basketball right now. A lot of the parity right now in the NBA is like it's like almost like NFL like right now in the same way. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, totally. You're right. I mean, I came into the year thinking that there were only a couple teams that you would basically have a night off against. And in the past, I feel like you could make that case for 10 to 12 teams that weren't going to be competitive. I was looking at it like Indiana, San Antonio, Utah, Oklahoma City. And you look at those teams, the teams that I just listed. I mean, Utah's played great, 3-1. So, I mean, the Spurs, same thing. So, I mean, you're looking at teams who you thought were going to be tanking for the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes. And here we are. They've been some of the better teams in the league. So, I mean, even a team like Charlotte, I didn't expect to be very good. I mean, they're 2-1. They've had a pretty good start. So, I mean, I looked at the Eastern Conference before the year as being the deepest that it's ever been. I mean, there's going to be teams in the play-in tournament who could be a 3 seed or they could be an 8 seed. I mean, that's pretty wild. I mean, I think Toronto and Miami, they've played back-to-back games against each other. They're the perfect examples. I mean, either one of those teams, you could make a case for being a 3 or a 4, and maybe one of them is going to be in the play-in. So, I mean, that's pretty wild when you think about it. So, I mean, when you look at the East, you're looking at like Orlando and Indiana, and even Orlando like poses its own challenges because of how big they are. They have Bol and Wendell Carter and Paolo Banchero, and like they have size throughout their lineup. So, I mean, on any given day in January, let's say, if you don't bring it against them, like they can probably pummel you, with how they score. I mean, I was watching their game against the Celtics the other night, and like the Celtics won, but like they narrowly won. I mean, Orlando was scoring at will, and I mean they're a team that I'm looking at as like not being any good. So, I mean, I think the depth of talent throughout is almost every team got better. I feel like that's in the playoff conversation. Even a team like the Knicks. I mean, everyone likes to clown the Knicks. I mean,
because it's fun,
They're basically bringing back the same team and adding Jalen Brunson. So, I mean, they're not really losing anything from what they had last year. They're adding. So, you look at almost every team in the East, they're adding. I mean, the Atlanta Hawks, I mean, they added DeJounte Murray. I mean, right now they're playing without Bogdan Bogdanovic. So, I mean, you look at a team like them, who many people might think, oh, they're probably a play-in team. Like, there's no reason why they can't be good too. So, I mean, you go up and down the list. I mean, every team has an opportunity, I think.
Portland intrigues me because you get Dame Lillard back after injury last year. They're 4-0. You say, oh, it was early, but they beat the Lakers on the road on Sunday, and they beat Denver last night. And I'm thinking to myself, well, long term, is this team going to be a playoff team, maybe a play-in team, maybe possibly a play-in team? Can they sustain this though, Portland?
Depends on what you mean by sustain it. Can they be a 5 or a 6 seed?
Can it be a top 6 team? Can it be a top 6 team in the
yeah. I don't see why not. I mean, I don't see them winning the West, but I mean, like if the comparison is, are they like a 10 seed or are they a 5 seed? Like, I don't see why they can't sustain it and be a 5 seed. I mean, I think the complaint we always had with Portland was they were so top heavy in terms of the backcourt. Like, you had McCollum and Lillard, and you didn't really have anything around them. I think that they're a little more balanced now. You basically replace McCollum with Simons, and I mean, he's a good young player. He can score. I mean, he was on a heater last night, so I mean, he was red hot from 3 at one point in that game against the Nuggets. So I mean, if he replaces McCollum and then you add Jeremy Grant, and so now you have one of those 3-and-D wings who can defend and who's athletic, and he's sort of like a good complement to what they're trying to do there. And Josh Hart had a good year last year. I mean, he's another good 3-and-D player. So I mean, he played well when no one was paying attention to them because Lillard was out and they were sort of, I don't want to say in tank mode, but I mean, they weren't going anywhere just because of the reality of what their roster was. So, I mean, you've added some good pieces that complement Lillard well. And he's playing at an MVP level. I mean, again, it's a super small sample size.
Yeah, 1 week.
But I mean, through 1 week, he looks pretty good. But I mean, we can have this conversation with every team. You put 1 or 2 injuries in the mix for any team, and it's going to totally throw everything in the chaos. So, I mean, as every team is healthy right now, for the most part, it's interesting because, I mean, you look at Portland, and it's like Lillard's healthy. He missed all of last year mostly with injury. So when he's healthy, you're seeing just how good he can be. So, I mean, I think that if he's going to continue playing at this level and you've got guys who can defend and cover up for him on the defensive end around him, you still got a pretty solid center in Nurkic. I mean, there's no reason why they can't be
right.
a 5 seed.
Now, a team you've covered in the past, the Nets, 1-2 start. I mean, obviously, it's real early to even start talk about, coaching on the hot seat and, if this core is working, this kind of thing. But I mean, you have to feel that Steve Nash is under a major hot seat right now. Right now, this early, like to me, is like I the way I interpret the situation with the Nets is that if this team is struggling before Thanksgiving, forget Christmas, that he could be gone. I mean, does Steve Nash last till Christmas this year?
Well, I thought prior to the season that he wouldn't last until the trade deadline, and that was before seeing anything. That was just me thinking that with the demand that KD made, and to be honest, I don't even think he wanted Nash and Marks fired. I think that was just his way of trying to force them to trade him. So I think he was making a request that he knew was never going to be honored.
Right.
But I think that it's a lot easier to get rid of the coach than it is to get rid of. You're not going to get rid of KD and Kyrie unless they both basically say we're not going to play for you. So, I mean, if they're willing to play, the easiest change to make is going to be to fire Nash. And I mean, I don't think he's any great coach. I think he's an average or maybe below average coach. But I mean, again, their success is all going to come down to KD and Kyrie and how well they play and how well the guys around them defend and do the little things. And I mean, through the first 3 games, basically what you've seen is exactly what I think KD's concerns were when he requested the trade. He didn't know the direction of the team in terms of like, okay, Kyrie and KD are going to be great. What about the guys around them? And you're not going to be able to move any. I mean, I guess you could move a couple of them. I mean, there's probably a little room for tweaking if you wanted to move like Seth Curry and one of the young guys. Like if you were to trade Cam Thomas, Seth Curry, and a future pick, could you go out and get a big somewhere? Maybe. It depends. I mean, again, there are going to be a couple teams that are probably going to be auctioning off their players as the season goes on, just because they have their eyes on the draft. So, I mean, maybe there's a little room for tweaking, but I mean, for the most part, I think KD knew that he and Kyrie were going to be good. And I mean, last night is probably emblematic of what his concern was, because they both scored 37 points and they lose a game by 10 points.
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to be pretty concerning. I mean, you might not get a game where those two guys play better together in terms of totally locked in, both shooting above 50% from the field, both scoring almost 40 points. The team shoots 56% and you lose by double digits. I mean, that's somewhat concerning. And I think also part of like going back to the KD's trade demand, I think that his vision of this team is with James Harden on it. And I think that the fact that you saw him in the offseason working out with Harden, it's like, okay, well, maybe there wasn't that grudge that it was made out to be. And maybe he doesn't want to play with Simmons. And I mean, through the first couple games, Simmons hasn't been great. I mean, let's call it what it is. I mean, he's averaging.
Did he play last night?
He did. Yeah, he fouled out in the fourth quarter. And people were complaining about, it was a weak call for his 6th foul. And it's like, that's fine, but he was minus 16 prior to that. So, I mean, they're making it sound like the refs fouling him out was what cost them the game. Like
he's not making an impact on the Warriors right
now.
No.
And he fouled out with 4 minutes left in the game. It's not like he fouled out in the third quarter and it's like, oh, we were robbed of a chance. I mean, they were minus 16 with him on the floor. He scored 7 points. I think he scored 17 points in 3 games. So, I mean, he's scoring, I think, just under 6 points a game. And I mean, that's tough because that's putting a lot of pressure on Kyrie and KD. And I thought it was surprising that KD said during media day, like, I thought he was going to run from the trade request and say, oh, everything was blown out of proportion. He's like, no, I was looking at the rest of my career and not sure what the direction of the team was. And he did mention, which I thought was interesting, about him getting older. And I feel like you don't really hear LeBron talking about getting older. His whole thing is like, oh, I'm better than I've ever been. Forget my age. It's just a number. I'm as good as I've ever been.
I think the injuries have probably added to that because LeBron's been relatively healthy his entire career. KD's had some couple, I mean, season injuries and
whatnot. The funny thing is that everybody talks about Kyrie and the games that he's missed. I mean, KD has missed just as many games. Now, obviously, there was the Achilles. But then the year after, he missed half a season basically with a hamstring injury, and he missed probably a quarter of the season last year with a knee injury. So I mean, he's missed a ton of time due to injuries. So I mean, when you look at like last night's game, it's like the first 3 games, that's what it's been. It's been Kyrie and KD has to do the bulk of the scoring, and it's like, how is that going to work with 2 guys in their 30s who've played more than 10 years in the league over an 82 game season when they're playing 39 minutes a game last night and they're still losing by 10 and they both played great.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that's the concern. And the easiest thing to do will be to get rid of Nash, circling back to your point.
Well, it would be.
Yeah, if they're struggling, I mean, obviously this is a 3-game sample size, but let's say a month from now it sort of looks similarly. The easiest thing to do will be to get rid of the coach. I mean, is it his fault? I mean, I don't think he helps, but I don't know that I would say it's his fault.
This is year 4, right, of Nash, or is it year 3?
This is year 3.
Okay, so year 1, you have COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Year 2, you have the Kyrie mandate. I can't play this game. I can play this game. So, and I'm not trying to make an excuse here for Nash. Obviously, he's a grown man, whatever. But these first 2 years kind of feel unfair, based on what's been around this team and things that he has no control over, especially the Kyrie Irving part with the mandate. If you're not at full strength, you're not at full strength.
Yes, I totally agree with you. And I don't think that Joe Tsai, the owner, or Sean Marks, the general manager, I don't think they want to get rid of him. I think that they like him. I know that Joe Tsai likes him. I think they're involved in some sort of lacrosse league together or something like that. So, I mean, I think that they all like each other. So, I mean, I don't think that's the issue. But the thing is that if KD starts grumbling again, who are you going to side with? Are you going to keep Steve Nash and give him continuity, but a lesser, younger roster? Or are you just going to move on from Nash and put one of KD's guys in there? Because look, nobody goes to the games to watch Steve Nash coach. I mean, the reason why they were asking for the moon and the stars for KD is because he's going to sell tickets for them. And I mean, look, he's still great. I mean, he's still a top 5 or 6 player. I mean, I wonder defensively if he'll be able to give them what he has in the past. Because I mean, look, like you've seen it with LeBron. I mean, I'm sure you've watched him after he left Miami. I mean, it's like he's always been great offensively, but where you've seen the biggest drop-off is on defense because at his age, he can't give you 100% on both ends of the floor. He's got to pick and choose his spots. And so it's easier to try and hide him on defense a little bit. And so I wonder, like with KD, like the idea behind this roster is that they were adding all these guys around them to sort of cover up defensively. Royce O'Neal, Ben Simmons, they're supposed Markieff Morris, I guess they're supposed to be their defensive players. But I mean, through 3 games, I mean, they've got one of the worst defenses in the league. Heading into last night, and again, it's a 2-game sample, they were ranked in the bottom 5 of defensive efficiency, and that's before giving up 134 points. And that Memphis team was playing their 3rd game in 4 nights, and they're without Jaren Jackson. So, I mean, I think if you look at that, I mean, that's not a great sign for their defense.
Not at all. Yeah, they look bad. I watched the condensed version of that game this morning, and it's definitely a hard watch there.
A lot of blow-bys. And I mean, again, they're putting a lot of, I talk about the pressure that's on KD and Kyrie to score, but there's also a lot of Nick Claxton's plate too, because they really don't have like a proven center on the roster. And I mean, Nick Claxton is not going to shoot. I mean, it's the same thing with Simmons. He's not going to shoot. They need dunks and layups basically to get their points.
Right.
And I mean, Nick Claxton is going to be the beneficiary of teams loading up on Kyrie and KD. But I mean, he's going to have to play meaningful minutes. He's going to have to score a lot of points. And I mean, as we saw in Game 4 of the playoffs last year, he can't go out and miss 11 free throws. I mean, him and Simmons are not good free throw shooters. If I'm in a close game with them, every time they touch the ball in the final 2 minutes, if I'm in the penalty, I'm putting them on the line. I'm not going to allow Kyrie and KD to wreck the game. I'm going to force one of those 2 guys to beat me, whether they like it or not. So
right. So I know it's only a 1-week sample through 4 games they played so far, but I feel like right now, aesthetically speaking, just from the eye test, that Boston is the best team in the East, and they probably not a close second. Maybe Milwaukee's own team I could see next to them, but I feel like Boston feels like this is the team that's probably going to win the East this year. If this could sustain moving into April next, obviously into the year, that Boston is probably the runaway in the East right now. What do you think about that?
I don't know about runaway. They're definitely in top 2. I mean, Milwaukee. I mean, again, that's a 2-game sample size, so they're 2-0.
Yeah,
but I mean, they're also super banged up. They don't have Middleton. They're going to get Joe Ingles back at some point. They're going to get Connaughton back. So, I mean, they're 2-0 having, I mean, they beat Philadelphia in a 90 to 88 game. So that was kind of a defensive, slugfest, if you
Right.
will. And then they beat up on Houston, who nobody's expecting to be in the playoffs. But I mean, they blew them out. So I mean, they did what they had to do. But I want to see what they look like when Ingles comes back second half of the year, because he'll really help their second unit. I think him playing off Giannis will be super helpful, just because he can knock down corner threes, and when Giannis, and he can handle the ball. So, I mean, you can put them in pick and roll. You can have Ingles stand in the corner and just take wide open threes. I mean, what they've put around Giannis is really impressive, just because they've got shooters all over the floor. And a lot of these guys can defend too. So, I mean, it's all 3-and-D players around a dominant big, more or less, who can't shoot. So, I mean, they've really built the roster out nicely. And with Boston, I mean, the X factor for them is Robert Williams. I mean, I don't want to say I'm not going to count a lot of what happens in the first half of the season, but we know how good Boston can be. We know how good Brown is. We know how good Tatum is. Having that nuclear weapon in Williams, who basically can be like a defensive player of the year if he played a full 82 games, super athletic. He can switch on to anybody. He can guard a guard. He can guard a center. He can guard anybody. So, I mean, you put that on your back line, that's pretty impressive. Now, I mean, I know that he had the knee surgery. They don't even need him the first half of the year. He can come back in January. He can come back in February. We know they'll be able to carry. Tatum and Brown will be able to carry the team in the meantime. You're going to have games like last night where they get blown out by Chicago, but you're also going to have a lot of games where they look really good.
Right.
And they've looked really good for the most part. And to be honest, last night, I mean, they were up 19 in the first quarter, and I think it's a case of you take your foot off the gas, and it's kind of hard to get it going again.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked they lost last night, actually. I thought they would take care of business in Chicago last night. I really thought that. I was a little shocked about that.
And I think some teams, especially during the regular season, you're going to have games where you take your foot off the accelerator, or you don't put it on the accelerator at all because it's an 82-game season. So, I mean, again, you're going to see that from Boston probably from time to time, just because they don't have arguably defensive player of the year back there. So, I mean, if you give up 120 points, it's like, okay, it can happen. I can see that, because you're trying to replace that with, I mean, Al Horford is still there, but you don't want to play him 35, 40 minutes.
Yeah, same for the playoffs.
Yeah, you want to save him for the playoffs. So now you're relying on Noah Vonleh to play major minutes. And I mean, he's a journeyman in the NBA. So, I mean, now you're taking this team who's probably the best team in the East if they're healthy, and you're putting a journeyman back there, and you're putting Blake Griffin back there. I mean, and Blake Griffin didn't even play last night until garbage time.
Oh,
so, I mean, they're really just trying to tread water until they can get healthy. But if I were them, I would take it super slow with Robert Williams. I wouldn't rush him back, because he's probably the difference between them possibly winning a title or basically being bounced in the first or second round. Like, they need him badly come playoff time.
Yeah.
But they're a good enough team that night in, night out, they'll be able to handle most teams without him for the time being. But they're definitely in the top 2 or 3 teams. And I mean, what more can you ask for? So.
Right, exactly. I know they won last night, but 1-3 Sixers. Are you concerned?
Not really, just because I feel like the talent is there. I mean, like, there aren't many guys in the league who are going to be able to stop Embiid. I mean, I think you heard about the plantar fasciitis that he had in the offseason. So it's like, that's not an issue now, but the issue is him not being in shape. So, I mean, I would hope that his conditioning gets better over the course of the season. I mean, you're seeing him take a lot of threes, which I've never been a fan of. I want him to get down low in the post and sort of force teams to collapse on him and either go to work or kick it out to other guys, and then have the offense move from there. I mean, the game that they lost against San Antonio, that's just a perfect case of they walked in there thinking that they were going to easily win the game. San Antonio played hard, and they couldn't rev it up. Kind of like what Boston had last night with Chicago. I mean, it's like you take your foot off the accelerator, and now all of a sudden this other team is playing balls to the wall, and now before you know it, you're down by double digits to a team that you should be blowing out. And if you look at Philadelphia, the first 2 games were against Milwaukee and Boston, and they were both fairly close games. And I mean, I think, as we just said, we think that those are probably going to be the 2 best teams in the East. So, I mean, they basically lost 2 games to teams that we think are probably going to be better than them anyway, and then a game that they just kind of no-showed against San Antonio, and last night they got right, I guess. But, I mean, I think a lot of it's going to be just figuring it out still with Harden and Embiid, and Maxey and Harris and where all these guys go and where they fit together on the floor. I mean, the concerning thing, and I watched the game against San Antonio, there was no ball movement. I mean, it was just Harden dribbling and 4 guys standing around like stationary, like statues.
Right.
It's like
Houston
that doesn't work. And I mean, like with the Nets, I mean, it's like they have that too at times where it's like you're going 1-on-5 and KD and Kyrie are great, but it's like everyone's standing around watching these great one-on-one players go to work. And it's like what makes Golden State great and what makes Boston great and what makes Milwaukee great is that guys are moving. There's always outlets for guys to pass to. It's not just a spectator sport. So I think that if Philadelphia continues just having Harden pound the ball for 18 seconds and everyone's standing around, then yeah, I would be very concerned. But I think that they have more talent now in Philly than they've ever had, in the last decade, let's say.
That's it too. Also, they keep the narrative I keep hearing out of Philadelphia now is that for them to take the next step, because Harden's getting his numbers now. He's getting he's doing Houston numbers now.
He's playing great.
What I keep hearing from people on ESPN, on Fox Sports, and other NBA basketball related podcasts every day is that for Philly to take the next step, that maybe it's time to lower Harden and to elevate Maxey's number 2. Do you agree with that?
I mean, I think that there's certainly a place to maybe put Harden off the ball at times, because I think because of Maxey's speed, if he's initiating the offense and he's driving and he kicks to Harden, well, now Harden can then drive once the defense is already on the move. So I wouldn't be opposed to trying that out, or at least working some of that in. And I mean, if they continue to struggle, I mean, if I were Doc Rivers, I'd be open to some changes, because I don't know that I just want to keep running Harden out there pounding them. Because you're right, Harden has played great. I mean, the issue is that nobody else has really played that well. Embiid has played well, Harden has played well individually, but they weren't getting any bench production. Last night they got bench production and they wanted a blowout. I mean, again, they're playing a bad Indiana team. They should do that. So, I mean, again, it's still a small sample size, but I mean, I feel like all the pieces are there for them to run a very high functioning offense. And I mean, when I was watching the San Antonio game the other night, I'm like, there are way too many good players here. If this is going to continue, go get Mike D'Antoni to run this offense.
Right.
Because, I mean, you can't be struggling to score 100 points against a San Antonio team that just gave up 134 to the Pacers. So, I mean, they've got the weapons, Philadelphia does, to score a lot of points. It's just a matter of how are they utilizing them. And if they're going to struggle, I mean, they scored 88 against Milwaukee. They struggled to score 100 against the Spurs. I think they had like 105. But I mean, again, they just got to that in the final 2 minutes of the game. So, I mean, it's like they have too many good players to struggle that way.
Right. All right. Say best for last for you. The Lakers. I mean, where do you start? Like, to me, obviously the whole thing with Russ, and look, I said earlier in the podcast that I think Russell Westbrook is being used as a scapegoat for a lot of their issues. I'm not saying he's not the part of the problem. I'm just saying he's being used as the main problem, but he's got to get out of there. That's just what it is. The bottom line. And I think here's the worst part of the Lakers 0-3 start here. It's like what we've been saying for the last couple of years. If AD's healthy with LeBron, this team's a problem. They're healthy right now, and they can't win games. Okay, and we know the AD injury is coming because that's just what it is: depth, taxes, and Davis gets hurt. That's just what it is. I guess the thing is, what do you do at Russ? Because because to me, to improve this roster, he's the only piece on the roster you can move to get quality pieces back, if that. What do you do at Russ?
Well, the only way you're going to be able to move him is if you trade those 2 first-round picks, the first rounder in 27 and the first rounder in 29.
Right.
And I'm only doing that deal if I'm getting a proven, if I'm getting like a Kyrie Irving or some guy that I know can go off for 30 on any given night. Because to be honest, Miles Turner and Buddy Hield are not moving the needle. I mean, Miles Turner's fine, but he's injured a lot. Buddy Hield is a streaky shooter and really probably on a good team, like a 6th man or a 7th, or not even a 6th man. He's probably like your 7th man on a good team, a guy who can give you outside shooting. Those first round picks are gold because AD's probably not there. LeBron's probably not there in 4 years or 5 years. Mm-hmm. So at that point in time, those could be top 5 picks very easily because the Lakers could be in 5 years the worst team in the league for all we know. So, I mean, that's not the same as like the Knicks getting all these picks that are top 14 protected and top 16 protected and, that sort of thing. So, I mean, not all first round picks are created equal.
Right.
So moving Russ will require you to get rid of those picks. And I'm not doing it for Miles Turner or Buddy Hield. And the issue with this roster is that it's poorly constructed in the sense that, Westbrook is a scapegoat because there's no outside shooting. So, I mean,
right.
It's hard to win games when you're shooting 20% from three. I mean, league average is typically between 34 and 36% on any given year. If you're going out and shooting 18%, 20%, you're not going to win that way. And LeBron has played well, AD has played well, but you need guys around to be able to knock down shots. And just adding Buddy Hield to do that is not going to be a difference maker. Maybe it gets them in the play-in tournament, but I mean, I'm not giving up my best assets just to get into the play-in tournament. At this point, you're better off just waiting it out with Russ and living the year with him. I personally would send him home just because I don't know that. First of all, I don't think he fits. His shooting has been abysmal. His jump shot, I think he's made 3 jump shots in 3 games, non-dunks or layups. Decision making is poor. He's not a good defender anymore. I mean, we see it with stars who age, right? When they're not as good as they used to be. We saw it with Carmelo. I mean, Carmelo was out of the league for a couple of years because teams didn't think that he could adjust to being a role player. But the thing was, Carmelo could still shoot. You could still stick Carmelo in the corner, and teams have to guard him.
He brought a value to the team, right?
Yeah, so he still brings some kind of value. I don't know what value Westbrook brings because he's not a lockdown defender. He can't shoot, and he's not really effective if the ball's not in his hands, and the ball's predominantly going to be in LeBron's hands. So he doesn't space the floor, and he doesn't strike me as a guy who's going to play the good soldier and who's going to do what the team asks of him. They want him to come off the bench. He doesn't want to do that. So, I mean, to be honest, I don't think Westbrook's even going to be in the league after this year.
Yeah, that's the thing. Kendrick Perkins, coming to doing media last couple of years, I used to find him ridiculous, but in recent months, he's actually grown on me. He had that take last night, not just only about him saying that they should send him home, but and by the way, Perk and Russ are good friends. They're very close, but he was very honest about it. That they should send him home, and that if he's not careful, he'd be out of the league next year, as soon as next year, because teams they're not going to touch that kind of element, unfortunately.
Yeah, if he's not willing to change his game, change his attitude, and change the way that he plays, he's not going to be in the league next year. Because where does he fit? I mean, the only reason why I would say he would fit on a team like Indiana or San Antonio is because they're not trying to win anyway. Right. I mean, they're putting it. It's not like the coach is telling the guys to go lose, but they're putting out a lineup that is not designed to win games.
Right.
And by adding him to those lineups, that's not going to help them win games. Maybe it makes them a little more up-tempo or a little more watchable. But I mean, ultimately, the only reason why he fits in those places is they're not trying to win. He doesn't fit on a contender as a starting point guard anymore. And especially to circle back to how we started this podcast, when you look at the parity in the league, there's so many good teams right now, and they don't need a point guard. They're good running the way that they're running. So, I mean, if you're looking at 25 teams that have thoughts of making the play-in at least or better, that doesn't leave a lot of room for Russ to come in and make an impact on a winning team. So in my opinion, I don't know where he fits in the future, and especially on this Lakers team. I would probably almost rather have Kendrick Nunn out there and handle the ball a little bit, but stand in the corner and shoot. I'm not that he's like some knockdown shooter, but he's a better shooter than Russ is. So I think just sliding him into his place probably works a little better. And to be honest, the Lakers haven't been bad in their first 3 games. I mean, they got
been competitive. Well, the Golden State game a little but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they were up by 1 with 6 minutes left against the Clippers. I mean, the Clippers are a better team. No one really expected them to win that game, but they were right there. And they clearly should have won the Portland game. So, I mean, you could make the argument that they, with a little luck, they're 2-1 right now, not 0-3.
Right.
So, I mean, it's not like they've been awful to start the season. But still, I mean, even going into the year, I only saw this team as a playing team at best. I mean, I just didn't. Yeah. I just don't see it because they don't have the shooters around LeBron. LeBron needs to be surrounded by shooters.
Well, LeBron is partially right. This is the issue, and also Rob Pelinka. Rob Pelinka's got an extension a couple weeks ago. I don't understand that, and this is a bad roster. This is around the 3 guys. I mean, I don't understand it. That was badly disjointed.
Yeah, at this stage in LeBron's career, he should be like the second or third best guy on the team. He should not
Agreed.
be asked to play 37, 38 minutes, score 30 points. And to be honest, this season for the Lakers is probably going to turn into just a LeBron watch with chasing Kareem. You know, I mean, that's going to be the excitement around this team. It's not going to be winning it.
Which is sad because unlike Kobe and Jordan at this age, LeBron is still a top 10 player in the league.
He's still playing great. Yeah, he's still awesome.
It's wasting years here.
Yeah, totally. And that's what other teams are holding out for. They're basically holding the Lakers hostage for those picks, saying, hey, we don't need to move our guys.
Yep.
You need to salvage the last couple of years of LeBron.
So I ask you this though: do they move Russ? Is Russ on a roster through April?
That's a good question. I would say no, but I don't necessarily know if they're able to trade him. I think that at some point they will send him home, but are they able to move his contract to another team? I don't know. It's debatable. I mean, I think you're hoping, if you're the Lakers, that things blow up in Brooklyn and that they break that thing down and that maybe you can still get Kyrie for those 2 picks. Mm-hmm. Or maybe another team has a similar type of thing where it blows up there. So will they be able to move his salary with the 2 picks? Maybe. I definitely don't think Russ will be there come April. Okay. But I don't know that it's because they've traded him. I don't think he'll still be playing games with them. It's just a matter of, is it like John Wall where they send him home and they just say, this isn't a good fit for what we're trying to do? Or can they trade him with those picks for something more desirable than Buddy Hield and Miles Turner? I don't know that they'll be able to get a good package to move him, to be honest.
Imagine being sent home and slipping $47 million. That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, John Wall played very little basketball over the last 3 years and made, close to $100 million. So, I mean, right. It's just the nature of the beast, I guess you could say.
Absolutely. You can follow Greg on Twitter at G Hrinya NBA. He'll be a part of this podcast all season long, doing some analyst work with us on the Earnestly podcast. Greg, it's great to have you back on here. We'll have you on the rotation, man. Definitely.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
You got it, brother. All right, as we wrap up here, the podcast, a couple of things to run down before we get out of here. Once again, thanks to Greg Hrinya coming on the podcast, as always. One thing I didn't do on the last episode, on the Sunday episode, I like I said, I'm not sure if I'm going to keep doing the Sunday reaction episodes every week. I would like to, but it also depends on how things shake at home. If the wife gives me space to do that, because it only requires 15, 20 minutes, honestly, of time to just react to the NFL. But she's been kind enough to let me come in the studio and let me do this every Sunday the last couple of weeks. So I'll do my best to keep doing it as much as I can. But what I didn't do on there, I forgot to add this to the list of things to talk about. I didn't reveal my college football playoff 4, my personal playoff 4. It's unchanged. It really is. That's why I might even bother to talk about it. 1, Ohio State. 2, Georgia. 3, Tennessee. 4, Michigan. I mean, that's nothing's gonna change. You got obviously the big Penn State Ohio State game this weekend. I don't think Penn State's gonna win that game at all. Other than that, really nothing else really big in college football this week. I would like to actually have probably one of my old buddies, Greg Smith of who has been a podcast for quite a while, but college football expert especially too, on the podcast next couple of weeks. So I'd love to get him on here, talk some shop about college football. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of content going on. I was so overwhelmed with content this weekend with sports. You had the situation, obviously you have NBA's back, college football this weekend, NFL football, the baseball playoffs, all that. There's so much to watch. Like Saturday night, I'm trying to figure out, like, not enough TVs in the house to watch it. I have the TV on one game, the TV on another game, the iPad on one game, the phone on another game. I have 2 TVs up in the house. I mean, there was a point, and I was like thinking about, should I get a third TV downstairs, take the TV on my kid's room, and bring it down? It was crazy. It was that nuts. At one point this weekend for me, in terms of content, in terms of sports. But like I said, it's not very common this happens in terms of the activity like this. But things are hot and heavy right now in sports, as they say. So, what else I want to touch on before I get out of here as well? World Series is set. Astros Phillies game 1 on Friday. We're gonna have Matthew Muleisen on the show on the Thursday episode of the podcast. I'm actually record that tonight. Because I'm gonna let him talk his shit. I'm not talking shit. He's a big Philly guy. Obviously, the Eagles are 6-0. Phillies are World Series. Sixers are important teams in the NBA, and whatnot. But let me talk shit on the show, because I'm a kind man that way, But I'm picking the Astros to win that series in 5. They haven't lost a game yet in the playoffs. People saying, you really hate the Phillies that much? You root for the Astros? Those cheaters? Oh, yep. Don't care. You saw I just did my NBA my top 5 rankings of most hated baseball teams last week on the last episode on Thursday rather, and you saw that number 1 with a bullet is the Philadelphia Phillies. Look, they're the I give Devils due. They are the hottest team in baseball right now. They've been playing very well since mid September, I respect them. I'm not gonna say I hate them to the point I respect them, but I'm not gonna root for them to win the World Series at all. That's just how it is to me. Same with the Yankees. The Yankees are in there too. It'd be the same thing. But Astros made it easier for me to not to worry about the Yankees and the Phillies in the World Series. That happened in 2009. That was honestly, I root for the Yankees. That was one of the only times you see root for the Yankees in that situation when they played the Phillies in the World Series. I actually felt good for Alex Rodriguez that year. I will admit. That wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. Actually, 2009 root for the Yankees in the World Series against the Phillies, but otherwise, no. Otherwise, that's it. That's not going to. So, what else here before I get out of here? The greatness of the Seth Rollins. I want to talk about real quick. So you guys know my story. When it comes to the WWE and wrestling as a whole. So you guys know. I've been a pro wrestling fan for decades, years or maybe. And I stopped watching wrestling in 2002 after WrestleMania 18, Rock and Hogan at WrestleMania. And I'm not saying in those 17 years between then and 2019 when I came back that I didn't try to come back or I at least knew what's going on. Like I knew who John Cena was and all these guys, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, you name all these guys that came through the pike in those 17 years, CM Punk. But I didn't watch the product on a regular basis. So when I came back in 2019. I came back in June 2019. That's when Rollins had just won a title from Brock Lesnar 2 months before that at WrestleMania 35. And I remember saying, and I wrote this on my blog a couple times too, like those first few months of watching the product, that I was not impressed with Seth Rollins as a champion. Like I acknowledge him as a fantastic in-ring performer, but he was a babyface at the time, and I wasn't feeling it. I mean, I remember they were pushing him and Becky at the time. At the time, they were still dating. Obviously, they're married now. And I remember at the time, I'm like saying that, this is, I'm not feeling this title run. Like at the time, he was a Universal Champion. And I think Kofi Kingston was a World Champion. And I kept saying that Kofi Kingston by far has a more interesting title run here, better matches and better feuds going than Seth Rollins. And they turned Seth Rollins heel pretty much later that year, not knowing at the time that Seth Rollins had been heel before in the past. So I was already cold on Seth Rollins coming in to watching in 2019, not knowing enough about Seth Rollins' back. Storyline prior to 2019. Now, Seth Rollins is fantastic. Seth Rollins, the heel, is the best. And look, they turned him 2.5 years ago. And obviously, I started enjoying him a little more. Obviously, his in-ring work is fantastic. No one's going to talk about his in-ring work being this and that. He's one of the best workers in all pro wrestling, period. Not as WWE, but in pro wrestling, period. But this gimmick here, the Seth freaking Rollins gimmick, the eccentric Seth Rollins with the funny, furs and the capes and the glasses and all that, and it's just the wacky, whacked out, crazy, whatever dude you want to call it. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's the best to me right now. Watching WWE, it might be probably after Roman Reigns' run right now in terms of like just interest, the best thing going right now in the company. Like I've gone from a guy who didn't care about Seth Rollins, like oh, this guy's just whatever, to yeah, this guy's really fucking great in ring character work, and I think what came out to me is this: the reason why I loved wrestling growing up as a kid, and the reason why it took me a while to get back into it, was that at the end of the day, yeah, in ring is important, vignettes are important, but characters still matter when it comes to wrestling. There needs to be something you need to. What makes you want to hold on to what you're doing beyond just the in-ring product? And Seth Rollins finally got into a character that I was able to attach myself to, enjoy, understand. This Seth Rollins run, and again, watching it in hindsight too, especially, This is easily my favorite run of his. Easily. And this is the same run where he's losing. He's getting guys over. He's getting Cody over. He's getting Edge over. He's getting all these guys over. He's getting other guys over. Losing a lot of matches, but still. The reason why no one cares, the reason why he's still considered a top guy, or one of the top guys, is because his character and what he does. It's what he's doing right now with this last year and a half. This character run he's done it's been fan-fucking-tastic. It's the best thing he's done in his career. Okay, and this is the same guy that did the heist in Mania 31 in 2015. This run, Seth Rollins' run, is far and away the best thing. And I gotta tell you, like, we were supposed to do a WWE 40 list, like ranking all the top 40, ranking our top 40 best, stars in WWE history under the Vince McMahon banner. And for years, I discussed, like, Seth Rollins is my 40, no matter how you slice it. He was my 40 before this character came about. But I'm hard-pressed to say that Seth Rollins might be a top 20 guy all time, 25 guy all time. Like, I had him in the 30s before. Now I'm thinking about, like, no, this guy is over in a way where now there's a longevity factor. And now it's reinvention. Things that we meant, Chris Jericho for. Reinvention. Keeping himself relevant. Macho Man Randy Savage, the same thing also. Seth Rollins doing that same thing now in real time. I am hard pressed to put Seth Rollins below 20 on an all-time WWE 40 list, honestly. This work he's doing right now is just truly phenomenal. He's made me also, as U.S. champion now, this is the first time I care about a U.S. championship in quite a while. Because it's on the guy that makes you want to care about it. So, like I said, I've done a 180 on Seth Rollins in the last 3 years, man. He's gone from a guy that I couldn't stand 3 years ago to now one of my 3 or 4 favorite characters in the entire company. He's fantastic. He really is. So, anyway, that's it for me today on this podcast, dated October 25th, 2022. Again, tonight, check me out, as always, on the Huddle Up Podcast, live on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, or you can watch on demand on YouTube as well, too, or on podcasts as well, Huddle Up Podcast, with me. Of course, I'm part of the panel, Big Jim Neese, Matthew Melizan, of course, Kyle Nash is on this podcast as well, too. Every Tuesday, as we debate football topics on both college and NFL, and it's always a good time there. I've been saying it for all year long. I keep saying it. It's been the most fun I've had this year doing podcasting in quite a while. So check out that show. And we'll be back on Thursday for our next episode. So until then, we will talk soon. Thank you.